blunt instrument slammed into his skull, and an instant later he felt himself being lifted and tossed over the parapet into the cold, driving rain, his body plunging toward the unforgiving sidewalk 38 stories below. Denver, Colorado. Gary Reynolds had grown up in rugged Kelowna, Canada, near Vancouver, and had had his flight training there, so he was accustomed to flying over treacherous mountainous terrain. He was piloting a Cessna Citation II, keeping a wary eye on the snow-capped peaks surrounding him. The plane was commissioned to carry a cockpit crew of 2, but today there was no co-pilot. Not this trip, Reynolds thought grimly. He had filed a false flight plan for Kennedy Airport. No one would think of looking for him in Denver. He would spend the night at his sister's home, and in the morning he would be on his way east to meet the others. All the arrangements for eliminating Prima were complete, and a voice on the radio interrupted his thoughts. Citation 111 Lima Foxtrot, this is the approach control tower at Denver International Airport. Come in, please. Gary Reynolds pressed the radio button. This is Citation 111 Lima Foxtrot. I am requesting a clearance to land. 1 Lima Foxtrot, say your position. 1 Lima Foxtrot, I am 15 miles northeast of the Denver airport, altitude 15,000 feet. He saw Pikes Peak looming up on the right side. The sky was bright blue, the weather clear, a good omen. There was a brief silence. The voice from the tower came through again. 1 Lima Foxtrot, you are cleared to land at runway 26. Repeat, runway 26. 1 Lima Foxtrot, roger. Without warning, Gary Reynolds felt the plane give a sudden high bounce. Surprised, he looked out the cockpit window. A strong wind had come up, and within seconds, the Cessna was caught in a violent turbulence that began to toss the plane around. He pulled back the wheel to try to gain altitude. It was useless. He was trapped in a raging vortex. The plane was completely out of control. He slammed down the radio button. This is 1 Lima Foxtrot. I have an emergency. 1 Lima Foxtrot, what is the nature of your emergency? Gary Reynolds was shouting into the microphone. I'm caught in a wind shear, extreme turbulence. I'm in the middle of a goddamn hurricane. 1 Lima Foxtrot, you are only 4.5 minutes from the Denver airport, and there is no sign of air turbulence on our screens. I don't give a damn what's on your screens, I'm telling you. The pitch of his voice suddenly rose. Mayday! May! In the control tower, they watched in shock as the blip on the radar screen disappeared. Manhattan, New York. At dawn, at an area under the Manhattan Bridge along the East River, not far from Pier 17, half a dozen uniformed police officers and plainclothes detectives were gathered around a fully dressed corpse lying at the river's edge. The body had been carelessly tossed down, so its head was eerily bobbing up and down in the water, following the vagaries of the tide. The man in charge, Detective Earl Greenberg, from the Manhattan South Homicide Squad, had finished the official prescribed procedures. No one was allowed to approach the body until photographs had been taken, and he made notes of the scene while the officers looked for any evidence that might be lying around. The victim's hands had been wrapped in clean plastic bags. Carl Ward, the medical examiner, finished his examination, stood up, and brushed the dirt from his trousers. He looked at the two detectives in charge. Detective Earl Greenberg was a professional, capable-looking man with an impressive record. Detective Robert Pregitzer was gray-haired redundant, with the laid-back manner of someone who had seen it all before. Ward turned to Greenberg. He's all yours, Earl. What have we got? The obvious cause of death is a slashed throat, right through the carotid artery. He has 2 busted kneecaps, and it feels like a few ribs are broken. Someone worked him over pretty good. What about the time of death? Ward looked down at the water lapping at the victim's head. Hard to say. My guess is that they dumped him here sometime after midnight. I'll give you a full report when we get him to the morgue. Greenberg turned his attention to the body. Gray jacket, dark blue trousers, light blue tie, an expensive watch on the left wrist. Greenberg knelt down and started going through the victim's jacket pockets. His fingers found a note. He pulled it out, holding it by its edge. It read, Washington, Monday, 10 a.m., Prima. He looked at it a moment, puzzled. Greenberg reached into another pocket, finding another note. It's in Italian. He glanced around. Gianelli! One of the uniformed police officers hurried up to him. Yes, sir? Greenberg handed him the note. Can you read this? Gianelli read it aloud, slowly. Last chance. Meet me at Pier 17 with the rest of the dope, or swim with the fishes. He handed it back. Robert Pregitzer looked surprised. A mafia hit? Why would they leave him out here like this in the open? Good question. Greenberg was going through the corpse's other pockets. He pulled out a wallet and opened it. It was heavy with cash. They sure as hell weren't after his money. He took a card from the wallet. The victim's name is Richard Stevens. Pregitzer frowned. Richard Stevens? Didn't we read something about him in the papers recently? Greenberg said, His wife, Diane Stevens. She's in court in the Tony Altieri murder trial. Pregitzer said, That's right. She's testifying against the capo di capos. And they both turned to look at Richard Stevens's body. Chapter 1. In downtown Manhattan, in courtroom 37 of the Supreme Court Criminal Term Building at 180 Center Street, the trial of Anthony Tony Altieri was in session. The large, venerable courtroom was filled to capacity with press and spectators. At the defendant's table sat Anthony Altieri, slouched in a wheelchair, looking like a pale, fat frog folding in on itself. Only his eyes were alive, and every time he looked at Diane Stevens in the witness chair, she could literally feel the pulse of his hatred. Next to Altieri sat Jake Rubenstein, Altieri's defense attorney. Rubenstein was famous for two things: his high-profile clientele, consisting mostly of mobsters, and the fact that nearly all of his clients were acquitted. Rubenstein was a small, dapper man with a quick mind and a vivid imagination. He was never the same in his courtroom appearances. Courtroom histrionics were his stock in trade, and he was highly skilled. He was brilliant at sizing up his opponents with a feral instinct for finding their weaknesses. Sometimes Rubenstein imagined he was a lion, slowly closing in on his unsuspecting prey, ready to pounce, or a cunning spider spinning a web that would eventually entrap them and leave them helpless. Sometimes he was a patient fisherman, gently tossing a line into the water and slowly moving it back and forth until the gullible witness took the bait. The lawyer was carefully studying the witness on the stand. Diane Stevens was in her early 30s, an aura of elegance, patrician features, soft, flowing blonde hair, green eyes, lovely figure. A girl next door kind of wholesomeness. She was dressed in a chic, tailored black suit. Jake Rubenstein knew that the day before she had made a favorable impression on the jury. He had to be careful how he handled her. Fisherman, he decided. Rubenstein took his time approaching the witness box, and when he spoke, his voice was gentle. Mrs. Stevens, yesterday you testified that on the date in question, October 14th, you were driving south on the Henry Hudson Parkway when you got a flat tire and pulled off the highway at the 158th Street exit, onto a service road into Fort Washington Park? Yes. Her voice was soft and cultured. What made you stop at that particular place? Because of the flat tire. I knew I had to get off the main road, and I could see the roof of a cabin through the trees. I thought there might be someone there who could help me. I didn't have a spare. Do you